Lincoln, Bob. Couldn't better. I did well in my job interview. Good for you. He gave instructions to trainees, but they couldn't make head or tail of them. You can't do things at one time. It's out of the question. Do them one by one. Bob, don't disturb her. Mind your own business, he whispered. If he persisted bothering her like that, she'd lose her temper. He was so charged that he could resist temptation. Stop making a fuss. It really gets on my nerves, she shouted. There's no point of talking back to Nick. He's a dictator, so to speak. They are very polite in his presence, but actually, they all talk about him behind his back. You despise Nick, don't you? On the contrary, I look up to him. His, his constant insults aroused her anger. I'm fed up with just filling papers and pouring coffee. I made up my mind to quit. In reality, many people have difficulty making ends meet. How can you get by on 100,000 a month? Female clerks will complain about their routines, which are not challenging at all. Thanks to a fundamental restructuring, our social swelled threefold. Many people today think of loyalty to a company as an absurd notion. I have to commute all the way from distant suburb. I'm sick of it. I went to spend the rest of my life pursuing my ideals. After retirement, Teresa devoted herself to caring for orphans. For the sake of children in need, we cooperated to collect donations. The charity named after a man who gave away some 2 billion yen. His autobiography was released today and sold out by noon. Ted, who is often referred to as a man of integrity, is going to run for mayor. The candidate was disappointed by outcome of the election. The municipal council should concentrate on more specific issues. This is the case of those who live on pension are forced to lead a hard life. We should leave out this data. It's far from accurate. We tend to associate politicians with hypocrisy. They primarily concerned with exploiting us, not with enhancing our living standards. The man once exerted dominant influence on the Conservative Party, but now his power is diminishing. The spokesperson refused to make any comment, saying it's under investigation. The police said there's someone pulling strings behind the scenes. The executive entertained bureaucrat at Lotte or exclusive Japanese restaurant, hoping for something in return. His secretary flatly denied leaking any confidential information. No one dared to contradict his or her employer for fear of being fired. He sacrificed promising career to retain his dignity. I might well kill myself or reconcile myself to my fate. He was about to commit suicide by swallowing poison, but when he thought better of it, the vague rumor proved to be false. Nevertheless, some skepticism lingered on. As a senior officer, I suspected of accepting bribes from the company, but there isn't sufficient evidence to arrest him. Jason, who was in charge of the project, was dismissed for corruption. To my knowledge, he was not involved in the fraud scheme. They were out of the truth while examining a file of relevant documents. During the trial, it came to light that they had been covering up illegal transactions for decades. The detective turned his testimony on the spot, word for word. For the first time in my life, I felt a pang of conscience, but there was no other way out. I'm still haunted by a vivid nightmare I had last night. By and large, reporters don't hesitate to intrude on one's privacy. The author revised his manuscript over and over again. He was second to none when it came to find fault with others. On the whole, the editor not sensitive to criticism. When a tabloid revealed that he was a drug addict, his reputation was all but ruined. They considered every aspect of the defense program and pointed out numerous flaws. We will not tolerate anyone who engages in terrorism. The notorious was ultimately captured and confined to jail. Troops were swiftly called in to put down the riot. We should appeal to reason instead of resorting to violence. I suggest we adopt flexible tactics for the moment. The armed forces succeeded in occupying the entire territory. Under the circumstances, the enemy had no choice but to surrender. They can't hold out any longer. Sooner or later, the hostages will be set free. Under the reign of tyranny, innocent people were deprived of their citizenship. Some soldiers were reluctant to obey the command. His regime was bound to collapse. The Allies condemned the invasion as a violation of UN resolutions. We cannot rule out the possibility that civil war break out in that country. The colony declared independence and became a republic. A immense monument was erected in honor of the noble patriot. He got on his knees and prayed for the souls of the deceased. The Supreme Court, located near the Imperial Palace, the protest group protested against ban on abortion. Senator Ford remained neutral in the bitter controversy. Ford had been in a difficult situation all week long. He is no longer capable of coping with it. The sound of the broadcast simultaneously throughout the world. The diplomatic dialogue helped put an end to the conflict. Johnson was appointed as the goodwill ambassador to foster mutual understanding between the two nations. The special predicts international tension will build up. In my opinion, permanent peace is nothing but an illusion. Ethnic minorities struggle against prejudice, poverty, and oppression. We must make every effort to avoid all discrimination. The immigrants have endured physical and mental pain. The amendment was rejected because it didn't take racial diversity into account. Needless to say, the refugees are longing for freedom. According to a survey, 3 in 5 people today are indifferent in foreign affairs. What will become of the Japan-US relations if the security treaty expires, unless Japan eliminates its unfair tariffs? the US will impose sanctions, try to fix matters between the two nations at any moment. At our top priority is to settle this dispute once and for all, so we are ready to meet them halfway. The federal budget was narrowly approved by Congress. He argues that administration must look for alternative sources of revenue. A proposal that overwhelming majority is favorable of legislation. The cops are searching for clues to the brutal murder. That must be insane. He can't distinguish vice from virtue. The fingerprints left on the weapon correspond with the suspect. It took us all by surprise when the noted psychologist was accused of kidnapping. The jury's guilty verdict gave rise to a widespread debate. The man pleaded for mercy, but he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his crime. The officer on duty perceived an elderly man coming up behind him. He caught the sight of the thief attempting to break into the house. The day before yesterday, we witnessed a real incident in the wilderness. I became aware of someone staring at me from across the aisle, so I turned around, but there was no one in sight. She screamed of the horror as someone took hold of her arm. Informed of her safety, he breathed a sigh of relief. The bullet penetrated his chest, leaving him in critical conditions. After present, it is uncertain whether deliberately free or by accident. A deadly cold fire burned down, leaving a heap of ashes. All of a sudden, the fireworks warehouse exploded and took 2 days to put out the blaze. A bomb went off in the 30-story building and more than 50 people are seriously wounded. A cargo vessel bound for the ocean sank in the Mediterranean without a trace. The latest known crew to death during the expedition to the Antarctic. The authorities must really remember this one is not to be repeated. The exhibition offers profound insight into ancient civilization. Giotto is credited with sowing the seeds of Italian Renaissance. Bob mounted the portrait on in a fancy frame, but it was upside down. This magnificent cathedral dates back to the Middle Ages. Ancient religion inspired him to create splendid sculptures. They explored the desert in search of the buried treasure. The millionaire insisted acquiring the masterpiece, no matter how much it cost. Myth and legend should be handed down from generation to generation. The language is fluent in several Chinese dialects. The tribe worships the ancestors and speaks its own language, which is not familiar to us. The anthropologists said that all the customs still prevail in the province. The Vikings cast an evil spell on the man and turned him into a bag. They proceeded along a steep path, which was the sole access to the border. When the big ape emerged from the cave, they got frightened and ran away. Believe it or not, I saw an alien and then it vanished. Give me a break.